Hi there. Before we jump into these couple of coins this week, I need to show you the charts through the Wyckoff lens so that you know that there are risks involved if you try to catch the falling knife. Let's touch on these three items that I usually cover throughout my sessions. So if you're new, these are the things that you can expect. So let's start with the first chart. That's Bitcoin. Here, in the past couple of weeks or sessions, I've already shared that Bitcoin is probably going to go through a pretty boring period. Maybe not as long as the one when it first started climbing, but when we look at the last distribution cycle, the very last leg, it lasted for about 8 to 9 weeks. Trading horizontal, eventually shot up to a level that's higher than the horizontal trading range before the final decline. So we are currently started, we have currently started the horizontal trading range. I said a couple of weeks that between 81 to 91 or slightly higher, that's the horizontal trading range, top and bottom. And after going through or reaching above 94k, now the price has dropped back to about 88, 89k. So that boring period will continue until hopefully the year end comes. So when all the capital reallocation and tax associated selling is over, we'll be able to see some kind of direction change. But be really cautious, like I mentioned. It may come up with a short upwards, but it can be a fake bull before the final leg comes. Alright, so let's closely observe this, and let's quickly go to the daily chart as well to see whether there are any additional information. So last week I already shared that the price can, based on what happened, the retesting of the 91k blue key level. And looking at the volume back then, I said, the volume wasn't very high, the selling volume. So there's a chance that the price would come up and challenge higher to the purple dashed line. And indeed it happened. And when it got very close to the ceiling of the downtrend channel box or the air hockey table, you know what happens, right? The air hockey bounces. And that's where we are now. The volume, again, is declining. So it looks to me it's still going to, play around within this or around this blue line for the next couple of days. All right, so that's Bitcoin. In terms of breakout timing, if the price climbed back to above the blue line, we are reaching a point at around the 11th, so less than a week from now, that the price may try to break outside of this downward channel. Remember, this downward channel started way back in early October. And it's already 2 months now. Otherwise, if it doesn't trade above the blue and come back to challenge this yellow dash line at around 82k, then the breakout opportunity will come near Christmas. But like I said, if people or the capitals or the whales are waiting for 2025 to pass, then there is a possibility that it goes further down to challenge the 74 or 75k range. And by then, we'll get to the beginning of the year to see the price challenge this breakout opportunity at these crosses. Alright, so that's the very first one. Now let's get to the second one, Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash is also at the late stage of distribution. So I shared before that Bitcoin Cash kind of shadow Bitcoin in this cycle, and actually last one as well. So while Bitcoin is trying to stay above or within the distribution cycle, or people call it a bull run, Bitcoin Cash is exhibiting similar behavior. It climbed to try to challenge the green key level of 615, but then now you see it's coming back to the long-term playground zone again. Long-term playground zone means this white box if you're new to my sessions. So this tracks the trading range or the price range of Bitcoin Cash since 2017. And looking at where it is now in terms of the weekly time frame, the big picture perspective, well, I haven't put in the the description of what's happening. So Whale's first selling happens as preliminary support stage of Wyckoff. These descriptions help you understand what's actually going on. And when we come to the buying climax, that's the retail FOMO pushing the price to the peak. And Whale's late FOMO first and fake bull is obviously the second test and upthrust. So meaning subsequent tests after the buying climax, it can go even higher than the buying climax itself, and Wyckoff gave those peaks or climaxes other names like upthrust and upthrust after distribution. But in order to make it simple for you to understand, you can see all those as tests. Okay? As long as there are people willing to FOMO in to buy whatever the whales have on hand, the price can go very high, higher than the previous high, and all those all-time high hype. Okay, whales offloading, obviously throughout the period after the first selling they'll do it, but this is more or less like the final stage after those peaks that at the last point of supply, the whales see the volume or the price actions, the positions that retail investors or traders are putting in. They know it's about time to leave and sit on the sideline and let the market run by itself, and that's where they started offloading, and we see these bigger red candles and consistently higher red volumes compared to the period when the price climbs. And now after a couple of weeks of pretty tall white candles, though be careful that when we look at these candles, it may look like, oh, it seems positive, but when you look at the candlesticks themselves, the price spread is getting larger, and there are long wicks at the top as well, meaning that these volume bars are a combination of both buying and selling. So compared to the ones when the price first started climbing, you see the wicks at the top is pretty short during that particular period from the whales first selling to the buying climax. All right, so that's the difference. And I talked about this. The LPSY is probably where we are, or BCH is probably currently going through, and we're expecting another sign of weakness to come. In the weekly time frame, the bigger picture, it takes time for things to evolve. So these remain same, 20% towards the upside, showing a second test, and preliminary support, meaning early accumulation, still counts for 80% of the chance. If you ask why I don't tag this as a second test, because the wick went so high, the reason is that it's not closing even it's not even closing above this white solid line, the top of the long-term playground zone. So look at these, the buying climax, the second test, the upthrust all close above that. So if this candlestick or the next week's candlestick closes above the white line, I'll tag it differently. And let's go to the daily time frame for BCH. So after multiple LPSYs, we are getting another one. So this one, still lower than the one we had back in beginning of October, and it started declining already. And these red bars aren't short. All right. So let's put one over here. This aligns with the one in the weekly time frame. In the daily time frame, this is more experimental. So if you're new to my session, Wyckoff method is not designed for these kind of frequencies. The weekly time frame works very well with it, but daily is experimental. That's been introduced by a request within the SATAG community. So we're just trying to see whether we can plug in those tags and things still make sense. More important is that these boxes, these what I call air hockey tables, these light blue boxes. So what has changed 2 days ago is that it came with a high volume, pushes the price above the ceiling. So there is a bit of a trend change for BCH. And the way I see it now is that we may call there is an uptrend, but what I see is that it's more likely it's just a horizontal trend. So let's change it and adjust it. What's happening right now is that after that couple of weeks of decline, BCH has entered or has changed to a horizontal trading range. Alright, the peak was set by somewhere around the upthrust and the second test, and the lows are the sign of weaknesses that we had since mid-October. Okay, or you can drag it all the way to the left where the PSY period was. Okay, obviously, when I say air hockey table, besides bouncing from the ceiling and the bottom, there is a center line as well. That's a bit different from the real game, but just one more line. Just keep that in mind. So the price would bounce between the ceiling and the bottom, as well as sometimes it got rejected or supported from the center line. So that's where it goes. Currently, the center line is very close to the yellow key level of $530 for BCH. And we see it just bounced off from the ceiling. And if the volume continues to be high, we see the rejection today from above the white solid line. Okay, currently it's trying to, well, it opened below that line. Yesterday closed below it. We opened below it today. It tried to climb above early in the day, but got heavily rejected back to a lower point. This is an intermediate support level. I can borrow this line and bring this up. You see the previous LPSYs. The peaks of the candles ended up at around the current price of 561. So that's where we are now. So the bulls and the bears will continue to battle around these levels. Okay, so if Bitcoin is going to come down, Bitcoin Cash, if it really shadows Bitcoin, it's going to follow. And depending on where Bitcoin has to, Bitcoin Cash may come back to the orange key level, 450 or 380. Alright, I mentioned a couple of times, don't expect when there is a drop, whether it's Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, don't expect them to drop all the way back to the previous accumulation level. Sometimes they just don't. Look at what happened over here. During 2002, 2003, it accumulated at a pretty low level, below the purple key level of 300. But look at what happened in 2004 and earlier this year. Alright, both times accumulated higher than the previous. So that's why I said if it really comes down, we have to observe where it finishes. Will it finish at around the red key level of 380, meaning once again it's going to accumulate higher than the previous round. So that's, and how should I put it? Deviation, or like an other scenario that would happen, other than coming back down to the previous levels. Okay, and finally for the third one, hype. This is another one that's going through the late or mid-late distribution. So last time, or the past couple of weeks, I said, okay, there's still 20% chance for it to show an LPSY, and we have to see whether this week's candle is going to be red or white. And after like a couple of days, it's showing red. So the way I explain it is that when we have this kind of trend and suddenly there's a white candle, we have to see whether it's really forming a peak. I can still give it as an LPSY, but you see it's basically flattening out. It's not even like this bounce. Alright, so I can give this a tag saying, okay, we have this LPSY. But more importantly is that if this really continues to go down, the volume, there's still 2 days and 7 hours left. This wick pushing the price from above, combining with a volume that's not low, meaning the sell pressure is still pretty high, even though there are people buying from the bottom. We'll go to the daily chart and see what actually is happening. The percentages, if I'm giving this an LPSY, alright, let's assume that it's going to close as red for this week's candle. I'll allocate the 20% back to the accumulation and another 10% back to, if it really comes back up for a second test or an upthrust of the distribution. For height, it has gone through the buying climax and the upthrust already. So that's the big picture. We haven't seen the panic sell yet. People are still playing around between these blue key levels, 28, 25, and 34.05. In the daily chart, basically, no surprise. We already talked about this downward trading range or zone. I'm using too many terms. Let's make it simple in future. Downward channel, either upward, horizontal, or downward channel, or air hockey table. Okay, air hockey table is to help you understand that the price bounces between the three lines within this air hockey table. The center line, you see it has been trading on the stronger side of the table or the channel. It dipped a little bit during 21st, 22nd November, and then tried to climb and stay on the stronger side. Remember I said if it trades on the stronger side, it's getting close to the breakout of the channel. But if it struggles to trade above that center line, it's going to take longer for the breakout to happen. That's intuitive, right? So as of this moment, the bulls and the bears are trying to fight along this box as well as the support levels. Okay, obviously the blue key level, $34.05, then isn't able to defend or support that price, and now it's currently getting pushed down to the weaker side of the channel. The only good thing I see over here is that the volume seems to be getting slightly lower, not very low, just slightly compared to the one we had on Tuesday. So be really careful, okay? While we seem to see some support around this current price at around $31, okay? Both on December 1st, 2nd, and today. But if this fails, it's likely going to fall back to the light blue key level of $28.25. Of course, these around $29 or $30, on 22nd, 23rd November, may provide a slight support. But if we look to the left, there's not much references, since the beginning of the year. That was the peak, during December 2024. But that may not be able to support this until the price dropped to at around $28. Okay, so we'll continue to see how this evolves within the downward channel. Currently, the trend hasn't changed. Okay, if it trade like it's like it's closing in the wedge. All right, but whether it goes to the upside or to the downside, it's so much in the middle of the channel. It's not going to matter unless it's a crazily high volume. Otherwise, it's going to shoot up. Then it's going to be testing the purple key level of $37.15 as well as the ceiling of the downtrend. Of course, if it shoot up very quickly in the next 2-3 days, it can test the red line of red key level 39.75 as well. But that's not seemingly to be likely, looking at what happened over there, unless some president or leaders of countries come out and say they're going to give crypto a push. Obviously, to the downside, I've already mentioned the light blue key level. If it really comes down to challenge the bottom of the channel, like I previously put in this tag, if it's really going through the preliminary support stage and it's going to seek to the selling climax, the green key level or even the yellow, looking at where the bottom of the channel is, will be possible. So that's a pessimistic scenario of $20.10. All right, so that's the three coins that I've chosen today that are going through distribution cycle. Hope you like this new format, and will continue. I'll continue to improve this, and hopefully I can cover more coins within this session. So the goal is to be able to cover the top 300 within 4 to 5 days in a week. So